Rev up your engines! Alright, cold weather's here. You want to make sure your heater is working fine. So today I'm going to show you how to keep your heater working good and how to fix it if it's broken. Now the basis of heating in most modern cars is pretty simple. Your engine puts out heat and the radiator coolant, the antifreeze, cools the engine down. It either uses the radiator in the front of the car with the fans going, or inside the car here is the heater core. It is a miniature radiator, and it's usually the highest point of the entire cooling system. And when you turn your heat on to heat, the hot water that's going through the heater core is then blown through the vents into your face. Now most cars work this way. If you have a fully electric car, most of those use heat pumps. Oh, it is so complex. It makes both AC and heat in your car. It's very complex stuff. Make your head spin when those break. But for most of us who are driving regular cars with a gasoline or diesel engine, and the coolant that's in your car is what heats you up. And as I said, the heater core is inside the dash, and it's usually the highest point. So if you're low on coolant, then your heater core can be full or half full of air, and that won't make you hot. Sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. The specific heat of water is much higher than air. So when you have hot coolant and the fan blows through the heater core, all that heat is transferred into your cabin. It's actually a heat pump of sort too, but that's how it works. Since the specific heat of air is much lower, if that heater core is full of hot air and not hot water, you won't get hardly any heat out. So something as simple as being low on coolant is going to make your heater not work very well. So when your engine's cold, so you don't burn yourself, first thing you do is see if you're full of coolant. In this case, the coolant's right up to the top, so it's perfectly fine. But if it's low, you got to fill it up, burp all the air out of it. I got videos on that. Basically, you want the front of the car to be higher than the back of the car. I got a pretty steep driveway. You can even jack the front of the car up. Then, when it's cold outside, you can take the radiator cap off, start the car, and then watch it. And as it warms up, add coolant until you get bubbles, and then finally, all the air's gone, and you fill the system up. Although some cars, it can be a royal pain, so you do that same process, but then you turn the heater on full blast, you drive around the block for 5 minutes or so, bring it back, and when it cools down, recheck it. You might have to add a little bit more coolant because air might have migrated through the system. As long as you get all the air out of the system will work as it's designed. Unless, of course, your thermostat is stuck open. Thermostats in most cars are a simple design. It's closed when it's cold, and when it warms up, it opens up, so it allows your engine to warm up in the winter faster. Now, if your thermostat is stuck open and it's cold in the winter, you'll see your car's temperature, instead of the gauge running in the middle where it normally does, it might stay real cold. And you're not going to get heat because the water's not hot enough. In that case, you just replace the thermostat. And in most cars, it's not that big of a deal, but some of the modern cars have 2 thermostats. Some have electronic thermostats. They're making things more and more and more complex as time goes on, which is going to cost you a fortune when the things break down because it's electronic. A computer operates it, even the computer system can break. They went from simple stuff like this to really complicated things just so they could get a quarter of a mile better gas mileage. When I changed the coolant last time I changed the thermostat, it's a little bit of a pain because you got to get the alternator out of the way. The thermostat's down there with 2 bolts, comes up and goes down. Now let's say you do all that, your temperature gauge is running in the middle, but you still don't have heat. You turn it on, it blows, but it doesn't blow hot. Well, you could have a clogged heater core, and this is why you want to keep your coolant fresh. The heater core is a miniature radiator, but unlike the radiator that's close to the water pump that gets really heavy duty flow action, the heater core has a lot less flow going through it. It can easily clog up if the coolant's dirty. So check with your manufacturer. This is a Toyota. The coolant's good for like 7 years, 120,000 miles or more. When you do need to change it, when it's 7 years old or has 100-something thousand miles on it, use the best coolant you can get. In the case of this Toyota, it's a special pink Toyota coolant, which is a hybrid organic acid technology, hybrid oat, which is one of the best ones out there. You always want to stick to what the car was made with, because you're never going to get every last drop out when you change it out. You don't want to mix one type with another. But some cars, like a lot of Chryslers, they just put cheap heater cores in them. And it doesn't matter what you do with the coolant. They just wear out because they're made like crap. And some of them, actually, they got eaten up by electrolysis because they designed the cars wrong. If you've got one like that, if you ever have to change the heater core, my advice is put a ground wire on the heater core and ground it to the body of the car. Because if you don't do that and they're not grounded, a lot of times electrolysis eats up the heater cores. I've had people replace heater cores on Chryslers, then 2-3 years later they got to do it again. It's because electrolysis ate them up. There's a lot of bad designs out there, and you want to try to bypass them if at all possible. If you have really dirty coolant, this may sound crazy, but it's true. Really dirty coolant in your cooling system actually conducts electricity. Then you have an electrical charge in your radiator, and that will eat up an aluminum head in an engine. It'll start to destroy electronic sensors. It's real easy to test. Just get a voltmeter and you check to see if there's voltage going into coolant. And if there's voltage in the coolant, you want to flush that baby out as soon as possible. You don't want the electronics to be ruined. I've had customers bring me cars that the coolant was like 12 years old and they had all these codes on their computer. All these different codes, and they had one common cause. The coolant was so dirty it was conducting electricity and it was making all the sensors go haywire. The only thing wrong with the car, because we caught it before it did any serious damage, was the cooling system was conducting electricity. So we flushed it out, changed the thermostat, and the problems went away once I reset them. Dirty coolant is not good for your car. And like I say, if you buy something like a Toyota, 7 years, 120,000 miles, so if you change coolant then, that's not very often. Just put a little notepad in your glove box so you'll know when the last time it was done. Because of course, mechanics are going to try to sell you everything when you go, oh yeah, you need a flush, you need blah, blah, blah. No, keep a record of it so you know. Of course, if your radiator cap isn't working and it doesn't build up enough pressure when it's cold outside, it won't get hot enough either. So you might need a new radiator cap once in a while. You see I got a brand new one in. I mean, the original one lasted for 17 years. So yeah, and my advice is do like I did. I bought it online. I bought an OEM one. A lot of times that cheap Chinese crap doesn't work right, isn't built correctly. Something like that, they don't cost that much more. Get an OEM cap. It was made for the car. It was designed correctly. Now, other things that can go wrong, you can check on the inside of the car. We'll start her up. And in this case, the heater is pretty simple. It's an old school. That's cold. You turn it as hot as you want. You turn the fan on. And you put it where you want it. And if you just want heat, in this case, we'll go all the way over here. It's only pointed at the feet. Now, if you don't get any air blowing when you turn the fan on, of course you can check the fan fuse. It's under the hood. Look at the top. It'll show you which one is the fan. But truthfully, if your fan fuse is blown, you got a problem that's blowing the fuse. You put another fuse in, it's probably going to blow right away. The most common problem if they don't blow, a blower motor. In this case, it's right under here. And there's a pretty simple trick I've been doing for years. Let's say the fan motor doesn't blow, you got to turn it on. You whack the bottom of the motor. If it starts spinning, odds are you need a new motor. Now, you don't have to go to the dealer and buy a $300-400 one. There's aftermarket ones that work perfectly fine. They are just simple DC brush motors. 4 screws that hold this one. You drop it down, you unplug it, you plug the new one in. Very simple to replace. And there's another tip. Let's say your heater puts out heat, but your windows keep fogging up and they won't defog. Well, realize one thing about most modern cars. You put it on, as we're going to show you, either heat and defrost, or defrost only. Most cars sold in the United States, at least, turn the air conditioning on with the heat. And you might say, wasn't that kind of ridiculous? You're trying to heat up, you got the air conditioner running? Well, the thing is, air-conditioned air is super dry. It's like the Sahara Desert. Now, you might have full heat, but if it's humid outside, your windows can fog up unless the air conditioner is running. So if you put it on defrost and have it all the way on heat, if your windows are fogging up, that means your air conditioner isn't working. Sometimes it can be as simple as you're just low on refrigerant. You can check that out, right? But that's the reason that when I was a kid, windows were always fogging up. We'd have a rag in the back seat and wipe the window with it because our cars weren't air conditioned. Air conditioning was a luxury. Most people didn't have air conditioning in cars back in the day. They had a heater, and the heat, like I say, especially say it's a cold winter's day, and maybe it's not freezing cold, so it's a rainy, not snow, but it's a cold rain. That's humid as heck. and your windshield will fog all up because it's wet air. The heater will heat it up fine, but it won't dry it off. That's why they have the air conditioning set that way. Now, let's say your air conditioner isn't working, your windows are fogging up, but you don't have the money to pay for fixing the air conditioning, right? It's winter, you don't think you need it for a while, right? So, here's what you want to do. You would want to put it on defrost as high as it goes and make sure you have the recirculated air turned off. You don't want to have the recirc on green. You want it off. Did you ever notice how if you're in a car in colder weather, especially if it's raining, if there's a couple people sitting in a car doing whatever they feel like doing, right? Things get hot and heavy, the windows are all fogged up. Now, you might want the windows all fogged up if you're making out in a car. So nobody sees you, right? But you want it to be unfrosted when you're driving. So, at least use fresh air, and when you're doing that with heat and fresh air, you might also crack the window a little bit just to blow the air out better. Now realize if you do these preventative measures that I'm showing you, not only are you going to have a hot car, literally, in the winter, but you're going to save yourself a ton of money because some modern cars, since the heater core is hidden in the dash, you can spend over $1,500 having that heater core replaced. You can buy antifreeze for $20 or so. Change it out every so many years, and the heater cores generally will last forever. Unless you own some pile of crap like a Chrysler where they just break because they're made so cheaply. That's another reason why you want to buy a quality car and not a poorly made one, because the maintenance in the end will just grab you. If you buy a new car, hey, as long as it's not an absolute pile of crap, it should last a while. But do you want a car that the engine goes at 80,000 miles? Or do you want something like a Toyota that might go 280, 380, 480,000 miles? I take the latter every time. And since it's so easy to maintain the heating system in your car, the other thing you could do, of course, is if, like this Matrix, you have a cabin air filter that's inside the glove box. I've got videos showing you how to change them. Take it out before the winter. If it's all full of crud, get another one. You'll get better airflow that way. Because if it is wet outside, you want to get more fresh air, and you're going to get less fresh air if the filter's all clogged up. Most are relatively simple and cheap to fix if you maintain it, because like I said, some cars, to get into the dash, you also have to take the air conditioning system apart because that covers most heater cores. So it's going to cost a fortune to replace a heater core that only went bad because it got clogged up with dirty coolant. And since winter's coming along, hey, you want to stay nice and cozy in your car while you're driving down the road. Hey, I enjoy winter weather, but I wouldn't if the heater didn't work in this thing. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.